exciting to be here. Very exciting to see the ecosystem of API capabilities emerging, not just in general, but also for the Internet of Everything. So how many of you had heard of Internet of Things before this conference? Quite a few. How many of you knew of Cisco as a leading network infrastructure company? But how many of you have heard of Cisco playing in the application and software platform world? Not that many. But when we look at, and I think, just can we go back to the beginning of the presentation? Okay. Okay. I don't think this is, okay, so when we look at the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything, the network infrastructure that is everywhere today, wireless, mobile, fixed assets, the only way to bring those worlds together is take the application platforms and the software capabilities and the API infrastructure you guys are creating and the applications you're creating and bring those together, fuse them together and make them available where these new kinds of things are operating. They're not part of our mobile world. They're not part of our laptops or mobile environments. They're sitting in environments where traditionally there has been no digital infrastructure. So I'm going to take you through a journey, and we're well on that way in Cisco, and we're very excited. We're coming to these kinds of forums because we're building the software ecosystem partnerships to allow the network to be relevant to things. And when you do that, what you'll see in this journey is you actually can support everything in that architecture. Let's take a look at a real-world example. Traditionally, in the transportation sector and the railroad industry, we've been providing network infrastructure and internet connectivity for years for the back office functions. But the railroads industry and many other transportation industries are coming to us saying, look, most of our problems, most of our OpEx, most of our issues, the next generation of savings and productivity gains will come from understanding what's happening in the railroad system, right on the railroad. Predictive maintenance, issues with derailment, understanding what's happening with the ball bearings on the trains. That's been underserved by the worlds we live in. But there's been very few applications. All that data is rarely collected and sent back to the big systems, the enterprise apps. So what have we done in that architecture? For the Internet of Things, we've been creating very hardened routers that have all kinds of sensor gateways now for these transportation industries. There are thousands of sensors being put on these railroads and also on the trains that are understanding what's happening with pressure, with ball bearings, with viscosity on the equipment that's in those trains and those rail cars. It just has never been collected. We're now collecting that. In those hardened routers that are connected both through the wireless as well as the Wi-Fi infrastructure, we also have streaming filtering capability, little application platforms and analytic capabilities that are taking all that sensor data that's coming in mindlessly and constantly and filtering it to understand where there may be issues, correlating it back, sending messages back through the network architecture to the big systems to say, do we need to handle something in real time? Do we need to make the network aware to the railroad operator, not just in the back office? If you do that, you now start impacting real profit capabilities for these railroad systems. This is an example of what we're doing today. We're putting in those hardened routers. We're bringing in those sensor gateways. We're bringing in the event filtering, the messaging buses into this architecture. And when we do that, that point of operation is now connected to the traditional applications the railroad industry was used to. We're also putting in dashboards using these kinds of application platforms that are available to the train operators on the train, to the back office where traditionally it was just radio communication. The efficiency of the network infrastructure on the train is giving camera angle views from very efficient video streams, not just sensors for data. We're providing live video as needed, maps, alerts, a lot of data in motion filtering, and we're also making collaboration technology available in that architecture so that if there's an issue and an expert's needed for the train operator, it's no longer a phone call or a cell phone call or a mobile call. It's also a video or collaboration meeting that's available for the train operators. These are real demands coming from these industries to us, And we know that if we can bring the app platforms, the API infrastructures, the next generation app capabilities, bring them together with the way the network, the digital infrastructure network, is now being enabled in these operational points, you can change the game. You can solve problems in real time or near real time that have just been underserved before. So with that example, I'll walk you through 3 kinds of things that we're doing. Why does the network infrastructure even have the ability to do this? Just a little bit on that. Why can we embed application capability in the network? What's the sweet spot of that? It is the Internet of Things. And if you bring all these capabilities together in these app platforms and you let those connect, it's really the Internet of Everything is what we're calling it. And then also some examples of the platforms we've already created with Mule and others in the network, and we're headed towards, and also some of the examples today. But this is just the beginning of the journey. And we're really looking forward to working with partners and customers like you to take this even further, because we believe that if we do this, the world of IT and applications is 5 to 10 times bigger than what we're experiencing today. If you look at Cisco's worldview, and also most network companies, we look at the network in terms of the edge of the network, in terms of the aggregation layer of the network, and the cloud and the data center. The edge is where we're sitting today in a conference room where our mobile devices are, where displays are. The aggregation layer is the closets where things are being connected up and the data is being sent back to the rest of the internet. The data center and the cloud we're all familiar with. We've been building, and we have hundreds of millions of routers, switches, and internet infrastructure that's connecting all of us together. We've also been opening virtualized environments and APIs on that. But over the years, we and all the players in the network industry have been putting hardened servers, blades, and appliances. The appliances at the edge, some are even smaller than a Raspberry Pi, some about the size of a Raspberry Pi, but very manageable in a hyper-distributed operational environment. The blades can sit right in our closets here and provide a lot of capability. The servers can provide as much as you need in any large cloud infrastructure. On those, in order to support the Internet of Things, we're embedding API gateways, controllers, ESBs, streaming filtering services, analytic capabilities, application environments, all of that in order to interoperate with the kinds of problems you saw. So the network has always had a lot of compute capacity that's hardened and available across the infrastructure, that digital infrastructure. It just was never used for the application platforms that can support the Internet of Things. If we put those capabilities on, such as the identity management that was just talked about, now things can connect with people, data, and processes in ways unseen before, in ways that are so distributed in their operation that we couldn't have imagined. And that's really the control point in which we're looking forward to put more of your capability. But what's the sweet spot for this? There's many applications, more traditional applications. It is the Internet of Everything, and I'll take you through a journey of what that Internet of Everything is. If we look at the world of Internet of Everything, the first thing to know is today, for instance, there's of the 7 to 8 billion people in the world, about half are online. There's probably 7 billion mobile devices online. There's probably 15, 20 billion servers, computers in the world online. But still, 99% of the world and the world that we work in is not connected. Machines, equipment, doors, as we heard about, vending machines. These are all things we interact with to live our daily lives. They're actually not connected to the internet. So 99% of the world, despite how connected we feel, is not connected. Going back to Greg's discussions yesterday, as well as the robot examples, if you start connecting those things into the world, everybody that runs the businesses around those worlds is thinking of new ways to use that connection of the rest of that 99% to the internet to create new processes, new offers, new operations that we can't even imagine today. We're just starting to get a clue of those. So if we start connecting 99% of what's not out there, that Internet of Things, to the world, what it does is open new ways for people, not just us, but the non-technical consumers, the processes and data, to those things and create whole new IT operations and business operations we've never seen before. And also make those available in all kinds of new ways to the rest of the world. Now, if you do that, we're hearing from the big industries and the enterprises, and this is just the big players, asset management and utilization, new kinds of productivity mechanisms we saw in terms of railroad maintenance, supply chain, logistics, manufacturing visibility, customer experience, next generation customer experience around those new things that traditionally were not connected to the internet, innovation in processes. All of those things are going to fuel many growth and demand for IT and corporate profit, which is leading a lot of the analysts and us to believe there's probably hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars to be created in the IT spend in the next 10 years. You bring all those things together, we're also seeing just in the next 5, 10 years, we believe, of that 99%, another 25 to 30 billion things, smart objects will be connected to the internet, to that digital infrastructure. The rate of growth for this will be faster than what we all saw at the turn of last century, or 2 centuries ago, in terms of the electric infrastructure, the telephony infrastructure. Why? Because when you connect these things, and they're smart, and the silicon, the cost of silicon to make them smart is shrinking, now they can participate in new offers. There will be somebody providing a service for a remote vending machine that before you could not understand whether it had capacity or not, or inventory or not. You take 50 billion things, you add them, and that's just the first inflection point. Once people figure that out, the internet becomes completely pervasive, becomes completely distributed, and what we see in terms of the world of applications going from a few million to hundreds of millions in the mobile world, there'll probably be billions of applications serving this world. And all of them will need app platforms, APIs, and application capabilities wherever, whenever those things need to operate. The industries driving some of these adoptions today that we're seeing, and this is just the first set, are in the manufacturing, process manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, the energy sector, transportation we talked about, cities, retail. This is just the first set. These are the industries where most of their mission-critical operational equipment has not been digitized, has not been connected to digital infrastructure. In smart cities, what we're seeing in both cities in Europe and the US, but also places like China and Asia, every city that's a new city is instrumenting thousands and thousands of sensors, putting a network in, a digital network in before the city comes up, not as an afterthought. These are hyper-connected cities that are coming alive. As an example, I was just in China driving some of our solutions. China is probably going to create 19 more cities of 10 million people each to move 200 million people more into the urban centers. This is a part of their demand for the growth that they need to have. Now, they expect there will probably be in those cities, these brand new cities the size of London or Chicago, probably 1,000 sensors per person minimum. So that's 200 billion to 300 billion more sensors that we're going to be serving with the network infrastructure, generating a ton of data, looking for messaging services, looking for transactions. And those cities want to be the best in the world in terms of offering complete experiences, new kinds of applications, new kinds of manufacturing capabilities. That's just the city side. On the process side, in the world of oil and gas, we know that oil rigs, 25 to 50,000 of them worldwide, are underserved by digital infrastructure. Limited bandwidth. It costs a lot of money, maybe even $100,000 per helicopter ride for an expert to get and solve problems. Our customers are demanding video surveillance, video monitoring, sensor data coming from those to the head end, back and filtered and controlled back from a remote location versus flying people constantly to the oil rigs. These are just kinds of stories that we're hearing that are driving it. Now, what are we doing to enable this? And our core network business, we are creating not just traditional network connectivity, but IoT connectivity. This much sensor capability, this much data requires IPv6, requires, in some cases, resilient as well as deterministic Ethernet. It requires converged managed services. It requires network security. But we know it also requires us to embed that distributed intelligence capability, those platforms, the APIs, the application enablement, because wherever in these cities, in these oil rigs, in these railroads, wherever now you can deliver and receive a packet from, they also want an interaction, and I think somebody talked about that earlier, a transaction, an experience, a decision, an alert. That's what will create value. It's not the enabling of the packets into those environments, it's the enabling of the app platforms to deliver those kinds of services that traditionally we're only used to getting on our mobile devices, on kiosks, on our laptops. Busy slide, but I think it's important. This world is already moving. There are a ton of application requirements emerging and applications emerging as we instrument more and more of these things that we hadn't imagined. There's three classes of these requirements. In the world of machine to machine, it's around asset monitoring. It's around predictive maintenance. It's around support services around that, for that. In the world of machine to people, it's about operations. Operations intelligence, not just business intelligence, real-time or near real-time understanding of what's happening for the experts. IT and physical security, if it's now connected to digital infrastructure, being able to use it to monitor the equipment more actively, but also prevent issues happening to it. Real-time optimization of logistics, supply chain. These are the kinds of machine-to-people application requirements emerging, many of which we and our partners and customers are addressing. But then in the people-to-people side, this brings in our capability in the collaboration and video space together with app platforms. How do you bring remote and virtual experts into an oil rig? How do you connect them to the railroad operator that's starting to detect an issue? How do you provide a design and QA on that remote equipment? How do you provide collaboration at the factory floor where there are issues happening? Bring the experts virtually over the internet, just like we Skype with our families. It's the Skyping kind of model. It's the Jabber kind of model in those environments. Some key takeaways from this area, the world of Internet of Everything. We're with all the things connected in, we're probably 10 to 20 billion people and things connected today. There'll be 50 billion things in a very distributed environment, now handling packets, sending packets, receiving packets. These environments are going to want new kinds of applications, data and services, business services, application services, energy, manufacturing, the smart cities that are coming up faster than we can imagine, the transportation networks, they're all demanding these kinds of capabilities on that digitized infrastructure. And that edge of the network is now getting connected in, and the appliances and the blades we talked about are getting populated and ready for the app platforms that can enable not just the digitization of that environment and those things, but the actual applications. Applications that will dwarf the number of applications you see in the mobile world. So what are some of the network-based platforms we're creating? What are some of the next generation apps we're already building? I'll just take you through a brief journey on this in this short presentation, but we welcome more discussion on this. We have a lot of our team here. And to understand how what you're creating, what we heard just now, can come together with the network to serve this world that's just looking for all these kinds of applications. We've been creating, the network used to be a black box. All the routers and switchers were just command line controllable. We've been opening interfaces on them. We've been working with Mule and others to open the application interfaces. The APIs that we just learned about are also relevant to this world. When we do that, we make the network now programmable to the system engineers and software engineers that need to control it more intelligently. We call it the application-centric infrastructure. No longer do you need to send a request out to someone. You can actually provision more equipment on a rail in a building. You can find more security. You can create more security. You can put that identity management in place for the devices you're connecting in. We call it the app control infrastructure. This is turning the network into a programmable environment. Opening up APIs that we're all familiar with and simple to use, connecting to device management, infrastructure provisioning, security, service orchestration, bandwidth management. How do you make sure that in limited bandwidth from an oil rig, the video feeds come at certain times, but then there's an incident, it's the sensor feeds that are coming. An app developer building apps for that should have that kind of control. And it's similar to what happened with databases. When database languages came out 20 years ago, suddenly data structures and data files could be managed. We're turning the network into a programmable environment through those API infrastructures. So that's the baseline. But on that baseline, we're also putting in the integration platforms. Wherever there's a packet available now to these new things and these new environments and these new data sets, you also need to be able to handle and deliver a message, a transaction. If you're detecting an issue with a rail car wheel, then maybe also once the customer is confident, they're going to also ask for an app that sends a control signal back to the railroad operator and others saying, maybe we need to slow it down, maybe we need to stop. Over time, they may even want to stop that operation. So it's transactional. So anywhere we're putting the ESB capabilities into the edge of the network, into the cloud, into the data centers, into the closets. And people are asking for it in a PaaS model, in a private cloud model. Doesn't really matter. We believe that you make that available, and that platform is there today. In the mobile environment, we've got very rich mobile infrastructure and Wi-Fi infrastructure that provides location services, sign-on capabilities, a lot of Wi-Fi data that provides mobile identity, but we tie that together with an ESB and an API center as well as an app platform. And now we can provide turnkey mobile apps. So as you walk into a convention, the system recognizes you. As you walk into a store, they understand your buying patterns. They connect you to the offers. This is something retailers are taking up like storm. We're seeing it in convention centers. In fact, Jose and our team will be holding a breakout session later today where it's bringing together the Mule ESB as well as our app capabilities and our mobile infrastructure to deliver very engaging services into convention centers and retailers. And that's just on the traditional mobile environment. Then in the world of IoT, if you're connecting all these things, there's going to be billions of them. Identity, creating identities for them, making them secure, providing middleware that can take all their language of communication, their protocols, and make them available to common buses, providing those common buses, providing a registry, maybe a URI service for things, just like we have a URI service for our browsers, browser points, providing that kind of capability, that becomes the IoT platform that brings all these capabilities and providing common APIs across that. That IoT enablement platform is also coming out. Now let's take a look. If you take that IoT platform, the integration in the network, the analytics in the network, we're also working with oil pipelines across our big customers in the oil, not just the oil rigs. Similar problem as what we saw on the railroad. But here the issues are around leak detection, around pressure points and things. They do have a lot of sensor capability, but not easily accessible, often requiring operators to go to key points in the pipeline. In these environments, we're putting in the same hardened routers, the same capability for sensor gateways and sensor collectors from these kinds of sensors, but we're also putting in event processing engines and event filtering engines. And in this industry, they're also asking for preventative controls back in to stop activity, stop flow, or if a critical issue is detected. And those are the kinds of apps that will start emerging in oil and gas. In the cities that we talked about, the first set of use cases are around emergency response. If there's sensors everywhere, the network is in the sewage system, in the electric grid, on the street, congestion management. There's video surveillance available. It's all of those kinds of applications are already coming alive in the smart cities we're seeing today, and all require that kind of application platform available in those environments. In manufacturing, we've been embedding the issues that we're dealing with in manufacturing are around utilization of the equipment, the energy management of underutilized equipment. We've been bringing in energy management software agents and software capability, tying them back to our ESPs, tying them back to APIs, so that the routers that now can live and operate in these environments, in these factory floors where they couldn't, are also looking at the power usage, helping redirect inventory development into underutilized equipment, or sending alerts back. And this is just the first set of use cases in this environment. In the power substations, every grid is becoming a smart grid. You've probably all heard about smart grids. Smart grids often have brownout issues, certain power units that get overloaded and have a burnout, and you've got to replace. Being able to monitor that. But this is no longer about collecting data from sensors. We have IP cameras sitting in these environments that actually have APIs exposed, that actually have ability to understand the data, and we're connecting them back, that data back to service buses, to machine learning algorithms that are helping detect certain heat patterns, certain color changes in the equipment that can be alerted back to the substation owners and the operators faster than traditionally done. And that's another class of use case that's emerging in this world. Once in this case, though, driven by handling and interpreting video traffic and video surveillance traffic. In healthcare, we're creating multi-use pods. I saw some healthcare examples yesterday in the pharmacies in the US where different patients can go and get not just a very high fidelity and high definition telemedicine kind of experience, but connect the virtual health record and maintain the privacy of your data as you walk into the pod. So you, with one insurer, could have one encounter and one telemedicine session. The system cleanses and gets ready for the next visitor and makes sure that all the data and all the context is available. And these kinds of pods are becoming very big in demand as the need for accountable care in the US is growing, which means that you've got to provide more dependable care once someone leaves the hospital in order for you to be paid from the insurers. Another example of a very distributed environment. We have a lot more examples like this, but I'll just leave you with some key thoughts on this. One, from the data center to the edge of the network, we're embedding application integration, application platforms, APIs, IoT-based middleware that lets us address the needs of this world of things that's emerging. Remember, this is 50 billion more things potentially coming out that will require whole new applications. So once we get them connected, which we're already doing at the network level, the value is created when we create the applications. The applications can only happen if you make the platforms available where it's happening. Two, sense and respond kinds of systems are growing in demand across these industries: oil and gas, manufacturing, smart cities, infrastructure. Those are new kinds of applications that have a ton of value locked up today. We bring that capability over the network. We can address that world. Three, in industries like retail and healthcare and logistics and citizen services, self-serve systems. More things connected in, more interactions possible with those things, more self-service kinds of capabilities, not just in mobile, but secure pods, remote environments. That's another trend that we're seeing. It's another pattern that we're seeing. And this is just the first set. So, giving you a glimpse of what's happening in the world of IoT, we believe we bring it together with app platforms, and we bring it together with the next generation applications. We think that's the world of IoE, Internet of Everything. And we really believe that that's based on the partnership with the software industry and the application platform ecosystem that will become integrated with this digital infrastructure to deliver this next generation value in very hyper-distributed environments, in operations, in services that we could never have imagined. And we're very excited about this. We look forward to meeting with you after this session. Please do join our mobile app platform session as well. Thank you.